Okay, welcome everyone to our webinar today. I'm really excited to have Best Roofing presenting again. They usually present on my circuit about once a year. Today we had expected to have an attorney from their firm, but we are now blessed with a new speaker today. We have Barbara King. She is the Vice President of Human Resources. So I wanted to just say I am Peggy West. I'm the event organizer for those who don't know. This is an HR class. We hope you enjoy it, and I hope this makes your community a little more harmonious with the tips and things that Barbara's going to share with us. That is the goal, of course, for the manager and the board members and the residents to get along. Maybe this will help, I hope. One of the things I want to mention about housekeeping is that this is a CEU credit. So CAMs that are on or getting on, please allow 2 weeks to have these credits posted and uploaded to the DBPR because I understand they're a little behind. And we will most definitely have them posted, and you can check yourself directly at the DBPR. Following the announcements of the sponsors here, I'm going to be sending out a sponsor sheet. It's going to have all the contact information for the sponsors for today. And if it's time to select new sponsors, please let them in for bids. I know it's budget season and they appreciate everything. Now we are recording this, so you will also get the recording. And Barbara's been very generous to offer us the slides. So all that will be sent out to you following our presentation. So let's get started with sponsor introductions. I'm going to start with our moderator for today. He is a significant insurance broker in the area of associations. His name is Daniel Baum. He's the CEO and founder of his own company, COA Solutions. Daniel, tell us about yourself, your company, and what's going on with COA.
Thanks, Peg. Hi, everyone. Nice to see you all again. Daniel Baum, COA Solutions. We provide property and casualty insurance to condominiums, HOAs, and multifamily properties. That's literally all we do. I like to say it's my job to help you find the least expensive policy for the best possible coverage. And that's what your agent should be doing for you every year. If your agent is coming back to you every year and showing you that they're doing a good job, you should stick with that agent. It's sometimes hard to find them. But a lot of people love their agents, and hopefully they're helping you find savings every year. This year, as you've heard me say before, thankfully, we haven't had any major wind events. Let's hope it stays that way, which will keep it that our property insurance will stay down and maybe even go down further, which would be amazing. So hopefully you are seeing a reduction in your property coverage. If you're not, you want somebody to take another look, I'm happy to do so. I do it without a fee. It's just a courtesy to tell you if I think you're overpaying. You can find my information in the chat, and I'll be privileged to be your moderator today, and look forward to talking to you all again. Thanks, Peg.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, next I'm going to introduce the sponsors that are actually on today. Let's drop down to Kaiser Air Conditioning. Today we have Ruthie Engel on. And Ruthie, tell us about yourself, your position, what you do, and about the company.
Hello, everyone, and thank you again, Peggy. We always like having a space here that we can connect with so many property managers and decision makers, so thank you. I am the marketing director here, and my job is just to make sure that you guys as property managers have a direct line of communication with someone here at Kaiser if you ever are in need of HVAC services. And I'm proud to represent Kaiser Air Conditioning, and we serve Broward, Palm Beach, Martin, and St. Lucie counties with extensive experience working with property managers and engineers on site, whether it be a condo or a residential community with multiple buildings. We know each scenario is different. So we just want to customize a VIP HVAC plan for you for your property. And we know it's budgeting season. It's something I touch on each week, which can be stressful. So we can develop a plan with you so you can meet those budgetary goals while fulfilling all of your obligations to the community. So our goal is to solve problems when they happen and create a lifelong partnership that makes managing your property easier, more efficient, stress-free. Another thing I just want to emphasize is that we do have a referral program. So if you have a resident that needs HVAC services, we do, offer a referral incentive for that. So we're open every day. You can always count on us and call me or text me personally, and I'm going to drop my info in the chat. So thanks again, Peggy, and have a great rest of your day.
Okay, awesome. Very good. Yeah, I'm so excited to have you guys as sponsors because I've never had an air conditioning company or firm, and they are 24/7, 365. And when we need air in Florida, we got to have somebody like that. So thank you very much for sponsoring. Next, I want to introduce, let's go with Shawnee. Shawnee's on from Munyon. They are painting contractors and they do some other things. So, Shawnee, tell us about yourself and what the company does.
Thank you, Peggy. As she said, I'm Shawnee Haas. I'm the marketing manager at Munyon Painting. I have spent the last 4 years in various marketing roles across construction, news, technology, and I'm very excited to be a part of the Munyon team now. For over 70 years, actually, we're celebrating our 75th next year, I believe. Munyon Painting has been helping Florida communities look their best with high quality exterior and interior painting services for both residential communities and commercial properties. We're very passionate about protecting properties and we love partnering with boards and managers to keep their communities sharp and well maintained. And I really look forward to meeting or talking to all of you who need help with your painting projects. Thank you.
Awesome. Absolutely. You guys are the ones for the state of Florida. I see you guys everywhere. Okay, with that, I'm going to go to the Wind Beneath My Wings. I cannot say enough good about this company. They are just specializing in everything to do with condominiums. You must know Vinteum software, and I'm going to introduce Laura Malagon. She's the international sales rep. Laura, tell us about yourself. What's new with Vinteum, and what are you doing for our condos in Florida?
Of course, Peggy. Hi, everyone. My name is Laura. I am the account executive here for sales at Vinteum. So we specialized in providing software and services for HOAs, condominiums, and property management companies as well. We've been in business for 11 years now and have helped over more than 300 communities across the U.S. to be legally compliant with their state's regulations, and a big part of these communities are actually in Florida. As most of you guys should know by now, there's a new Florida law, the House Bill 1021, that states that on January the 2026, the 1st of January, associations with 25 or more units would be legally required to have a website, a password protected portal with important documents available to residents. Vinteum is already helping many communities in Florida to comply with all of these requirements. And of course, if any of you is in need to comply to this, we are here to help. So if you would like to schedule a demo with us or have a meeting with me and get more information about how can we help you make your life and work easier, we will send you all our information through the chat. And yes, you can leave your community in our hands. We will definitely help you out with everything you need here in the state of Florida.
Absolutely. And coming from the property management side business, former VP for a sizable company in Florida, yes, your association management companies have websites, but what if you want to make a change? Okay, I really feel it would be better to have autonomous websites that you can put a link on your website that links you to your property management website. But take a look at this. It's affordable. They've got experience. They have an awesome website, and they will train you one by one. That's mean board by board. They will privately train you. So again, I can't say enough good. I can't say thank you enough for helping me with the webinars.
Thank
With
you,
that,
Peggy.
you're certainly welcome. And Julia, hats off to you, girl. You can't do it without Julia. So sorry, Laura.
Thank you, Peggy. Really nice. Thank you.
All right, so now let me just mention the other sponsors who have had appointments. This is a very busy time. We're going into season. I'm going to start with, let's see, the Paving Lady. They are based out of West Palm Beach. They cover Martin, Palm Beach, Broward, and Miami-Dade counties, and they are moving up into the Orlando area. So if you need a price for paving at your community, they do an awesome job. Next one is Allenac Railings. Anybody have any railings on your condominiums? We got them everywhere. Even HOAs, you've got them everywhere. They are manufacturers, and they also do repair work. And then if they need repainting, you can always go to Miss Shawnee from Munyon. Also, we have City Quiet Windows and Doors. Ben Friedman is the president, and he does an awesome job, based again out of South Florida, but he does have an office over in West Florida. So again, very, very efficient and professional. Next, I have First Citizens Bank. Projects are everywhere. I don't know if you have a relationship with the bank, but First Citizens Bank has quite a bit going on. They have great low interest rates and cash available. The contact there is Jamie Gelfand. Next, I want to introduce Velocity Services Group. This is a restoration and a large loss restoration company. So large loss. If you have any large losses, hopefully we don't have any too many this year. Last year was horrendous, but that would be if your whole building got wiped out or half your building got wiped out, half your clubhouse. Velocity Services is available, and they have about 100 people on their staff available to help in Florida. Next, I want to introduce Hafer Company, another wind beneath my wings who helped me start my business. Very substantial CPA and audit firm in the state of Florida, 4 offices. If you want to get a great evaluation, call Nicole Johnson. Very, very reputable. Next, I want to introduce a new streaming company. I say relatively new, a couple years in Florida now, faster.io, saving people tons of money, as I understand it. You want to reach out to Bob Aleka, Vice President for Community Services. Next, I want to introduce PD Concrete. PD Concrete is based out of West Palm Beach. They do cover the 4 counties, Martin down to Miami-Dade, but they will venture out a little bit further north into Indian River and have talked about going to Orlando as well. But PD Concrete, they have an engineer on staff. They do an awesome job, and they also have a painting division. So if you need some help with concrete restoration. Last but certainly not least, I want to introduce United Professional Engineers. UPE is based out of Palm Beach County again. The owner, Carmelo Giglio, is the current reigning president for the state of Florida Structural Engineering Association. He was actually one of the original engineers to go down when Surfside collapsed, and he was asked to do so by the governor. So very, very reputable. He's been in business 25 years, and he carries the inspector license SIS, which takes 20 years to get. So very reputable company. If you need a bid for engineers, he's very thorough. That would be Carmelo Giglio, and their rep is Siobhan Gonzalez. Excuse me. I just want to mention myself also. I do have a new website I'm trying to get up and running for everybody. It's called FL Florida Condo Vendors for You.com. You can go and check it out. I'm trying to link my sponsors with all of you out there on the classes, board members, CAMs, and get you some new companies to go to for vendor choices. Okay, all of these people, sponsors, and on today, sponsors that you're looking at will be on the sponsor sheet that I'm going to also send out following with everybody's contact information, email, and you can reach them directly after the class. With this, I'm going to turn this over to Diana Olert. She is the Best Roofing Business Development Director at Best Roofing. Diana, tell us about yourself, the company, and then you can turn it over to Daniel. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Peggy. Thank you, everyone, for being here for us. We appreciate it. Diana, the Director of Business Development at Best Roofing. For all of you that don't know about Best has been in business for over 46 years. We cover West Palm Beach, Broward Day. Now we open also Orlando, Tampa, and Jacksonville. If you have any needs of roofing on that area, we'll be more than happy to help you as well. We do from the minimum little to the biggest. So we do single family homes, we do repairs, inspections, maintenance programs, and we also do recovery, re-roofing, everything that you need basically on your roof. We'll be able and capable of doing it. We are approved by all manufacturers, most of all manufacturers known by you out there, and we'll be more than happy to help you with anything that you have in your roof. Even if it's a simple question, nothing is simple for us, we'll be more than happy to help you. Thank you so much for being here today. Go ahead, Daniel. Thanks.
No worries. Thank you so much. Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce Barbara King. She is the Vice President of Human Resources and Operations at Best Roofing. As you've heard, one of South Florida's leading commercial roofing companies. With over 20 years of experience in HR leadership, Barbara oversees all areas of HR operations, from benefits and talent development to culture and engagement. She's also a published author in Latinas Rising Up in HR, and is passionate about developing leaders, mentoring others, and creating workplaces where people can truly thrive. So we're very pleased to have Barbara presenting for us today. Just a quick note of reminder, the chat is not monitored for questions. If you have questions you'd like to ask, please put them in the Q&A box. That's where we'll look to respond and answer to. With that, Barbara, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Daniel. I appreciate that introduction. So yes, Daniel says that the chat box is not being monitored for questions, but I'm used to doing this with a bunch of people in front of me. And so humor me if I say something funny, or you think it's funny, or pretend it's funny. You can put that in the chat box just so I know that you guys are out there and I feel like you're engaged. But this is peer-driven organizations, or as Best Roofing likes to put acronyms on everything, PDO. This presentation is going to give you insight into why moving beyond traditional hierarchies matters, and how peer accountability, peer feedback drives stronger results. So because I am in HR, I like to do a lot of data, a lot of statistics. So I'm going to bore you with some of those things. So Gallup did a study in 2023 that showed highly engaged teams show 21% greater profitability. So in the chat box, just raise your hand by a quick show of hands. How many of you currently work in a traditional hierarchy where traditions flow from the top? Okay. All right. So Daniel already introduced myself, so I won't bore you again with that aspect. But I wanted to share with you another quick statistic before we get into the playbook of PDO, or peer-driven organizations. In 2022, Deloitte conducted a study that showed 53% of companies that shifted from a team-based structure reported faster decision-making. And I'm sure some of you are sitting there in front of your telephones, computers, with your coffee, your beverage of choice, maybe even lunch because it's lunchtime, and you're saying, oh, absolutely, I've worked in organizations where decision-making is extremely slow. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. So what are peer-driven organizations? So the definition behind that is organizations where influence and accountability are distributed amongst peers, fostering collaboration and mutual support. We're going to talk a little bit about what that looks like, and we're going to talk about key characteristics and the importance in the workplace. So what exactly is a peer-driven organization? At its core, it's about sharing influence and accountability across peers. It's about sharing feedback. It's about not just having one person at the top making all those decisions. It's about working collaboratively as a team. Studies have shown that organizations with collaborative cultures are 5 times more likely to be high-performing teams. So some of the key characteristics are decentralized accountability, peer-driven support, collaborative culture, and shared responsibilities. Its importance in the workplace is the agility and the innovation, the engagement, enhanced performance, and shared vision of the future. So these are some peer-driven organizations. You have your employees, you have your boss, you have your individuals, you have a family culture, you have managers, you have a hierarchy. And I'm sure everyone on this call today has worked in either one or more of these types of organizations. The because I said so culture, we've all heard that, whether we've worked in it or heard it. We've all been in a family setting or out with friends where he says, yeah, because my boss is working with me and he said, because I said so, or I had somebody say, because I said so. Hierarchies bring order and predictability, but they often can slow us down. And I'm hoping that all of you are going like this when I say they can often slow us down. How many of you, by a show of hands, have waited weeks for a decision to make its way up to the top, only to find the situation had already changed along the way? Yep. So we have one hand. I know I've been there too. So that can be very challenging. It can be very rigid, and they limit innovation and frustrate employees. Studies have shown, and you have to write this one down because it's so important. Studies have shown that 72% of executives believe slow decision-making hampers growth. When you can't make decisions, and again, it's not about making decisions quickly, but if you can't make decisions without it going to the top, so much changes along the way that it slows growth. So think back to a time. Obviously, you don't have to answer, but if you want to share in the Q&A, you can. Think back to a time when a decision was delayed in your organization, and what was that impact, and how did that impact you? So some of the pros of the because I said so or hierarchy culture is predictable and stable. It's efficient. There's clear accountability. You know exactly who's going to be making those decisions. And then there's risk management and compliance, which HR loves to have, but there's got to be that fine balance. The cons to that because I said so hierarchy culture is that inflexibility, the slow decision making, low employee morale, low innovation. It impacts you tremendously when you can't make a decision because there's somebody that says, because I said so. So let's talk a little bit more about that because I said so. In a hierarchical organization, decision-making can often be so slow that by the time a decision is made, the original problem may have already changed. So think about a time when you've been impacted yourself, when you've lost competitive advantage. So those of us that are in sale, those of us that have been BD, when you've lost operational efficiency, financial performance, customer satisfaction, risk management. You've lost that connection with your clients. You've lost that connection with yourself of being satisfied and working in that environment because there's been that because I said so environment. So before I go on, Daniel, do I have any questions about a hierarchy culture?
No, not at the moment.
All right. So let's talk about not what you know, but who you know. And I know everybody on this call has heard this saying. So let's talk a little bit about family cultures and the effects on the workplace. Again, not saying that a family culture is not engaging or the best type. It can feel warm, it's supportive. It's almost like you belong to something bigger than just a company, and that can be impactful and powerful. But what are some of those challenges? Sometimes loyalty overrides performance, and it becomes more about who you know than what you contribute, right? So how many times, if you've worked in a family environment, have you thought about, well, Barbara gets to hang out with the owner's son all the time or the owner's daughter all the time, and I don't because we don't have the same things in common. So I think she has an upper advantage than I do. Studies have also shown that nepotism reduces performance by 10 to 15%. So, by a show of hands, has anyone worked in a family-like culture? Did you enjoy it or did you not? You can put a thumbs down or thumbs up. Okay. So some of the so lots of thumbs downs, okay. So some of the pros are that employee loyalty. You feel like you belong to something. There's strong support systems. There's, a sense of belonging, less rigid work environment. But the cons, which is probably why we're getting some of those thumbs downs, is there's favoritism, there's nepotism. It's difficult to address performance needs. I'm sure some of you on here are in management positions and have had the owner's son, daughter's cousin's niece, something reporting into you. And it's very difficult to have those tough conversations of you're not performing, let's have a conversation. Blurred professional boundaries. Who gets promoted? Who doesn't get promoted? And then the resistance to change. A workplace culture where employees are treated like family members emphasizes strong personal bonds, loyalty, and a sense of belonging. Again, it's not what you know, it's who you know. So there's that politics line and there's that performance line. There's gossip, there's a little bit of toxicity. There's just a ton of challenges that come with not what you know, but who you know. In a family culture, loyalty and personal bonds are often prioritized over individual performance and merit. This can lead to a culture where who you know matters more than what you know. So by a show of hands, who's been, we won't call it a victim, but who has experienced that performance and merit overrides that individual performance? We got one thumbs up for working in a family environment. That's awesome. Yep, here. I hear you. All right, so let's talk about it's all about me. I know everybody's worked with somebody in an organization where it's all about them. It's me, 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 me. I've done it. Hey, guess what I did today? So a workplace culture that emphasizes individual roles, responsibilities, and performance focuses on professional relationship and merit-based recognition. It's good, but can also create isolation and burnout. We've all seen environments where people compete so much that the collaboration just disappears. It's not sustainable. Gallup did a study in 2023 where individual-driven performance systems increased burnout by 33%. So by a show of hands, so thumbs up or thumbs down, how many of you been impacted by that burnout? Thumbs up meaning you have, thumbs down meaning, nope, I'm good. Okay, few of you, yep. It's me, myself.
Barbara,
Yeah.
excuse me. I'd just like to tie this in some way, how this can affect board members with the CAMs. Someone just made a comment in the chat box, and again, please put your questions and comments into the Q&A, please. But this one says, regarding risk management, board quorums, always for voting, it is like a group that they think that they can get together among themselves and make decisions and then bring the vote to the meeting where like 5 out of 7 of them, for an example, of the board members already made the decision.
Okay.
I mean, how would we help them with that?
So repeat it again one more time for me, Peggy.
Ooh, I just deleted it. Hold on.
I think that went back. I think, Barbara, I think it was from an earlier part of your presentation when you were talking about risk management and how
Compliance.
they've seen issues come up within the community. And someone had mentioned that the board's quorum always, they see the board basically seems to have this groupthink mentality that they get together among themselves and make decisions and then bring that vote to the meeting, and 5 out of 7 always vote the same way. I think that was just part of an earlier part of your presentation.
Yep. So I put the slide back on. You know, it's challenging when you have that because I said so mentality. There is risk and management and compliance components, but I think you just need to challenge. Is it really compliant? And is it really part of that risk management component? You know, sometimes people do sit in a room and say, because I said so. And it's a very difficult challenge, but I think when you turn around and ask those questions as why is it because you said so? Why do you think that way? Why are we voting that way? I think that might help resolve some of those issues and break down some of those barriers. Go back to where we were.
And then bringing you back to where you were in the burnout conversation, Janet contributed that in her community, 5 board members are resigning at the end of the year because of burnout and not knowing how to interact with the residents. So I guess it was just not something they were ready for, and the demand on them was way more than they expected.
That's concerning, obviously, and burnout can definitely impact morale. It can definitely impact, you know, turnover period. You know, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that we haven't experienced it ourselves, because we've had some turnover and people have been asked to do more. And so it does impact morale, but it's about, you know, reacting, you know, making sure that you've got people in there that can support, but you don't start to have that ripple effect where other people on the board are burning out as well because of that me factor. You know, a lot
I'd
of it
just
has
like
to
to interject one more thing, please. I'm sorry. Just board members out there, please be careful. If you don't have replacements, you don't want your community to go into what they call receivership. This is where your attorney takes over and it costs you a lot of money. So yes, everybody has burnout, but maybe you can help each other, you know, through some of the tougher times. Start recruiting, maybe from the time you get on the board, grooming other people in the community to take your place after a couple of years, and try to avoid the burnout. But you definitely want to avoid receivership where you don't have a quorum.
Yeah, but that's a great point, Peggy. You know, burnout doesn't always necessarily mean about the work behind it. It could be something personal. I'll share something personal with you. My stepmom is on her board, and she's aging very quickly. She's facing dementia, and so we've had those conversations of, I think it's time for you to start removing yourself from the board. And, you know, she's expressed those conversations with them. They're working on finding her replacement, so there isn't that gap. But I think it's also about encouraging that open dialogue of, this is where I'm at, this is how I'm feeling, and it's okay to feel that way, and it's okay to, you know, move on if you need to.
Yeah, and I can imagine with board members, it can be even more challenging, Barbara, because it's an unpaid voluntary position. So you think you're going into it to help your community and make your community better, and then you get bombarded like you're a property manager being paid for the work. And not to take anything away from property managers, because they get bombarded more than anybody does. But the voluntary nature of the board seat, I think a lot of people, when they first think about going on a board, they want to do it with the right mindset. They want to bring change to their community, and then find out that it's a lot more work than maybe they signed up for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And, you know, obviously it's a different situation with my stepmom, but, you know, what we told her is, we understand why you went into this, but speak up so that you're not just up and, you know, leaving the situation, the position, and leaving the board empty, you know, where decisions can't continue to be made. So great point. So how many of you have felt competition cross the line into unhealthy territories at work? Just by a raise of hands. It's all about me. So prioritizing individual success can inadvertently foster unhealthy competition and workload disparities, creating an environment of resentment and burnout. I don't know if never haha means you're being sarcastic, but good for you if you really haven't. So, HR's favorite word is there's no I in team, right? So how does team culture affect the workplace? When team culture works, it's magical collaboration, innovation, and engagement. They all go up, right? It's a perfect world. You can just see it. It's like a Disney movie. But it's not without risks. Group thinking and conflict can absolutely creep in. And the key is strong dynamics and shared accountability. And the reasons why we talk about shared accountability is because you can't go into this group thinking and group decision making without the accountability of if we fail together. If we succeed together. There's none of this going on. So the pros of a team culture is enhanced collaboration, improved communications, increased innovations, high employee engagement. Your employees want to participate in those gruesome meetings that you used to have every other day. There's collective problem solving, and then there's strong relationships. But the risks are the group thinking, because then you can't make a decision because you got 5 people on one side that think one thing and another 5 that think another. There's potential for conflict. How do you handle that conflict? If I don't agree with everyone in the room as an executive leadership of 6, how do we handle that conflict and how do we overcome that? And then you're dependent on those team dynamics of consistently making those decisions together as a team. And then your shadowing of individual achievements, which is not a bad thing. It depends on what you want to accomplish as an organization.
So Barbara, if you're ready, I have a question for you.
Go for it.
So someone anonymously asked, how do you recommend dealing with a board president who views and acts as though they are the boss? And they have followers that agree with them because they are fearful or don't want to bother with decent, or claim they are only volunteering and don't have time for deliberation. So it sounds like a board president who's trying to run the show and has their own followers supporting everything they do.
So, I could tell you what I would tell my employees of dealing with something like that. A manager who is the boss and do as I say, not as I do sort of approach. I think open feedback is absolutely the way to go. And sometimes it's a little difficult. Sometimes it's scary to do it. If you don't have the support because you have others that are behind the scenes saying that, I don't have time to address this. It's okay to be that person to stand out. You don't have to necessarily tell the person how they're doing their job incorrectly, but how it's coming across. I think when you're giving someone feedback, you give the constructive and you give the appreciative. And I think sometimes that helps with the situation. You could say something like, look, we appreciate you being the president board for X amount of years, and maybe highlight some of the things that he's actually done well. But then say, here's some of the challenges that I'm having with you as the board president, and I'd like to see if we can have an open dialogue to fix those things. It's not easy at all. But once you start to engage in those conversations where you're finding a balance of the positive and the opportunities, perhaps you'll be able to address that. And then some of the other people that perhaps are saying, I don't have time for that, will then chime in and say, well, now that I think about it, since Peggy said X, Y, or Z, perhaps I should chime in and say something as well.
Couple more?
Sure, go for it.
Okay, so Dolores offered a little bit of insight. Hi, Dolores. Always nice to see you. She writes, I think this has to do with the burnout conversation we were having. Some community members can be very inconsiderate to their board members, and it can quickly convert to burnout and resulting in them getting off the board more quickly than they had planned. So I think she was just offering a little bit of insight into another burnout scenario that we were discussing before.
It's funny that you should say that. I do live in an HOA. And our HOA president, who happens to be my neighbor across the street, has faced some of those challenges where, the community members are just, they can be a little challenging. And he has actually sent out information and emails on how to conduct yourself in board meetings, how to conduct yourself in those presentations, what questions to ask that don't come across as an attack. We had, during COVID, a call about our pool being opened and closed and who wants to go to a pool when there's COVID. And somebody made an inappropriate comment and he immediately addressed it. And so I'm not going to sit here and tell you that our community is the best community, but there's become these boundaries during our board meetings where people are respectful. If they're angry about something, they address it with the person that they're angry with in a respectful manner. And we've established a pattern, I guess you could say, of not necessarily burning out our board members, knowing very well that this is all voluntary for them, that they're doing this to better our community, not anything else. So I hope that helps.
Yeah. Now, one more question. Another anonymous. We had a board for 14 months that was voted off and others voted on. They were also running for the board. Now they're getting attacked on everything they say or do. The previous board, I guess what they're saying is the previous board is blasting out emails to the entire community, basically attacking the new board. How would you settle them down?
That's an interesting conversation. Peggy would love your insight on this one too. You know, again, I'm a firm believer of addressing the situation head on. It's not conducive to an environment where you're trying to accomplish one goal, whether it's an actual physical work location or it's a community or it's a board. You know, I think addressing it head on and saying, these are the issues that we're facing and we're trying to make some changes here. We'd appreciate it if perhaps maybe one person, if there are concerns, if there are any sort of grievances that you want to discuss, that you address it to one person instead of sending out these mass emails that impacts everybody involved. Let's settle this, you know, privately where we can continue to move forward. You know, it's a community. No matter what you think about, it's going to impact people how they read those emails. Why do I want to even live here if this is what's going on? I don't know if Peggy, you have some insight that you'd want to, you know, share.
Yes, from experience, I can tell you town hall meetings are amazing. There's so many misunderstandings on text messages and emails. People just read into it wrong. When you're with someone and you can look at them and they present to you the idea or the change or whatever is going to be good or best for the community, and you get a different perspective on, oh, okay, that's what they were thinking of. And it doesn't become, we don't want to do this as the board only, when really the community wants to communicate with the board. Let's take a look at this. Let's take a look at that. So if it gets really extremely challenging, you know, invite your attorney to come to the town hall meeting and let them explain a few things while you're having the meeting, because I've done this actually in my career with town hall meetings where the board, you know, they were making decisions and the community really wasn't for all of it. But on a side note, I originally raised my hands to say, break down, put them into committees. The board doesn't have to have the responsibility of making all the decisions without input if you have committees. So have an event committee, have a, you know, you got your architect committee already. You have those, you know, finding committees and all that you have to have, but have other committees to address other things, and maybe meet once a month and just have like a coffee, have a town hall meeting and just, you know, open it up and then advertise it in your little newsletter or put it on your website. Everybody liked this idea, didn't like this idea. I wouldn't name people, I wouldn't get into that, but I would certainly encourage more communication. And I think that's the key, communication, you know, where the board understands who the presenter is and what they're presenting, and the residents buy into it as well. So the board can use it for buy-in and the residents can use it for boards to buy into what they're thinking of. But I recommend town hall meetings.
That's amazing. Thank you, Peggy, for sharing that. We actually call our town halls coffee chat, where our employees can actually submit their questions in advance. And it's not because our executive team wants to filter the questions. We ask all the questions, but there are some tough questions that somebody's not necessarily comfortable in asking in a public setting. So we sit there in front of everybody. We do have coffee and donuts, and we answer those questions for them. So
Yeah.
we like to call them coffee chats because town hall seems very serious.
Oh, fun town halls. I'm talking about fun.
Fun town hall. That's what you can call it. So I wanted to share one more statistic with you and have you just kind of think about, as you end this training session here today, Gallup did a study that said companies with strong team culture experience 50% lower turnover. So think about when you leave today and you sign off, what made that team successful? If you've worked in that team environment where everyone supported in each other, think about what made that team successful compared to others that you've been a part of, whether it's something that you're a part of today or in the past. What made it successful, and how can you be that change agent and start incorporating some of that? So what are peer-driven organizations? Best Roofing's really big into soccer. So you're going to see a lot of soccer photos. So I apologize in advance. So the 5 elements of a team culture: it enhances performance, it encourages personal responsibility, it builds trust and responsibility, it facilitates open communication, and it focuses on collective success. I'm going to show you in a couple of slides some pictures, and I'll address it when we get there. Some of the feedback that we've gotten in some of these coffee chats is the vulnerability that they want to see in the executive leadership team. And I'll show you later on what that vulnerability looked like. I almost lost my job for it, but I'll show you what it looks like. Peer accountability is what makes teams thrive. It's not about the boss checking your work. It's your peers expecting you to show up and deliver. Hold each other accountable. Where were you? We were supposed to work on this project together. When peers hold each other accountable, it creates trust, responsibility, and stronger results. Encourage personal responsibility. So how many of you, by a raise of hand, would say that feedback from peers feels different compared to feedback from a manager? Show of hands. And sometimes people will tell you, I'd rather get feedback from my manager because he's the one who signs my check and he's the one who does my review. But feedback from a peer can definitely feel different. I'll share a personal story with you because it was a life lesson for me going on as I continue to grow in my career. I used to work for the Orange Box, Home Depot, that is. And we lost a store manager, a couple of assistant store managers. It was just a high turnover. People were moving, people got promoted. And so my boss says to me, I need you to be out on the floor running the store as a store manager. No problem. I ran the store for about 3 months with a crew of 2 other assistant managers. And so when we finally got a store manager and we were fully staffed, I went back to my little old world of HR in my office doing the things that I needed to do. And we were having a meeting with the new store manager and assistant manager that was with me through thick and thin. And we were having a conversation and he just turned around and he said, "You are horrible. You suck. You haven't been on the floor in months. You don't support us. You don't care about this store anymore." I was appalled. I'm like, I can't believe you. You didn't come back to help me for HR. I was extremely offended. And he left. I was mad, ready to leave, wanted to pack up my stuff and go home and get over it. My store manager says, "Can I give you some feedback?" And I said, "Yeah." First, he said, "You don't have a good poker face." So I've been working on that. But he also said, "I think you need to understand what your assistant manager was telling you. He was telling you that he values you. He wants you out there on the floor. He valued you, the support that you gave you. He valued everything that you did for this store." And while his approach might have been harsh or needed some work, he was trying to express that he appreciated that partnership. And ever since then, as tough as it is to hear peer feedback, you have to be thankful for that feedback. And you can always turn around and say, "I would have appreciated if you didn't act so angry or weren't upset with me." But we were able to have a different conversation after that. And so peer-to-peer feedback definitely feels different. I highly encourage you to go with the appreciative and the constructive feedback so that it doesn't create that tension. Daniel, any questions so far?
I have one comment that I think is interesting and would love to share, and then a question.
Okay.
So, Gerald offered his experience with high-performing teams and says they don't happen by accident. The group goes through 4 stages in their development: forming, storming, norming, and performing. I think that's kitschy. This requires time and dedication on the part of the group. It's very difficult to achieve in a COA board, and the board doesn't meet enough for each member to develop the necessary attachments to each other. He said, I've been on many teams and have been the team lead on most, and if a board could achieve real team status, that would be absolutely fantastic. But I think his point is that it takes time, effort, and really working together, and they don't always have the ability to do that.
Absolutely agree with you. I can't agree. Forming, storming, norming, and performing is definitely an HR. That's our jam. We love to do stuff like that, but we also understand that boards don't necessarily have the time or the ability to do so. But it's about the creative component of utilizing some of those components into the board.
And then an anonymous person put a question in here. When 1 or 2 of the board members have full and unchallenged control of all communication channels, i.e., emails, Zoom, administration, the website, and they report to no one, and this controls the narrative of any pursuit, what does a person who has a different perspective or is more informed to do?
That's an interesting question. I don't even know if I'm equipped to answer that one, Peggy, from a board perspective. Yeah, I mean, it's difficult, right? Because to your point, Daniel, board isn't necessarily paid, it's all voluntary. I think there's probably definitely avenues of being able to challenge those components, especially if you're not informed. There has to be some avenues whether it's through the property manager or not, for you to be able to raise your voice and say, I have concerns.
Well, my take on that is the manager should help foster a open and friendly, I don't want to say confrontation, presentation, would like to say. In other words, the residents maybe could funnel their comments and information through the manager to present that to the boards, because some people just don't like to present things, from a political standpoint. They live there, the neighbors, and so on. And I think that that's partly what the managers are for, to have an open door policy where people can come in and express, their concerns and, hey, can you help me out with this approaching the board? Maybe they're new residents and they don't know the board members either. So that's another thing the managers can help with. So use your manager and be open-minded, and that's all you can do.
We have some additional comments. Dominic says, hey, Dominic, always nice to see you as well. I have a dysfunctional board. I do everything and they do nothing, and even get boards that they're not even getting board certified. What do I do?
Yeah, I would say that this probably goes back to what Peggy was recommending, is working with the manager so that we can, you can raise those concerns with your manager.
And then Janet says, hi, Janet. I am, exclamation point. They're trying to kick me off the board as I keep asking for transparency. We're not supposed to contact our management company. I'm just a governor, not a board member.
Peggy, I don't know if you have any insight or any recommendations for this particular, for Janet.
Well, I would recommend, it's kind of like a sales thing. I know this sounds corny, but you need to know your board members that you're sharing collective decisions on. And I would have a one-on-one with each and every board member, a few minutes, stop by. It doesn't have to be a lunch or a formal thing, but, hey, I'd like to introduce myself. I like this about the community. Share things one-on-one and get to know each other, because a new person coming in, you don't know anything. You don't know what they've said before, what they've talked about. You don't know who people are going to help you, who are not going to help you. So it's really up to you as a new board member to reach out to the other board members, I think, and express yourself and see, get a feel for what the community wants, because maybe you came from a different community and this community doesn't really want certain things. Avoid conflict at all points that you can. Uh, don't be confrontational, don't be overbearing, but be open-minded and say, hey, we did this worked, this is why, this and that. And don't be offended if your idea is not taken like immediately. You might have to be on the board 6 months, even to a year, before people understand your intentions being really good for the community. So I recommend highly each board member get to know each other. You're going to be making a lot of critical decisions together. You might be spending a lot of money for the community and having to go to assessments. Daniel sells insurance. Those insurance policies and numbers can be very expensive. So, you have to be comfortable with your other board members.
All right. Any more questions, Daniel, or should we keep going?
No, I think you can continue.
Okie dokie. All right. So building trust and reliability in a peer accountability organization. It's when team members hold each other accountable. It's a faster sense of trust and reliability. I can tell you that our teams, when they hold each other accountable, there is a sense of, you didn't try to throw me under the bus. You didn't go to my boss and say, this didn't get done. You came to me and said, hey, where are we with this? This needs to get done. I know my cameraman behind the scenes, you can't see him, but I know when I owe him stuff, he's like, hey, where are you? Where are you? I need this. Team members know they can depend on each other to meet their commitments and those needs and perform to their highest abilities. So just think about it, nothing for you to answer. But how many of you had a teammate call you out in a constructive way and it actually motivated you to improve? Not for you to answer unless you really want to, but just think about that as you continue to work towards building trust and reliability. Facilitating open communication. Encourage open and honest communication among team members. Feedback is more readily accepted when it comes from peers who are equally invested in the team's success. I can't express enough, though, the feedback has to be appreciative and constructive. You don't always want to go into a conversation with your peers about constructive feedback without showing some sort of appreciation. That individual on your team does something right. I assure you they do. Strengthen team cohesion. I told you guys we like to play soccer. It strengthens the bonds and cohesion within the team, and it creates a sense of unity and collective responsibility. Now you're relying on each other. Now you're actually asking questions. And if you want to make some changes or if you want to do something different, you're going to rely on each other for that cohesion. So what are the steps to implementing a team culture? You define team goals and values. I'll tell you, we're going to show them to you now. We have fundamentals, but as an executive team, we said, do we want to redefine them? We're not trying to change the history of Best Roofing, but do we want to redefine them? We created middle-level manager positions, director positions. We're gathering them all in the room. Diana, you can't share this because it's for next week's meeting, but we're going to ask them, what does the goals and values mean to you? We're going to have them help us because, again, it's not that top down. It's you need to tell us what we need. You foster open communication. You build trust and mutual respect. We've had conversations on an executive team that we don't necessarily agree. We've had VPs call out, C-suite, we think that you're enabling people, and it's very uncomfortable, but it's okay to have those conversations because as we continue to meet, those conversations about our teams become a lot easier. Recognize and reward your teams, not just, with pizza parties, but with things that are going to engage them, are going to require them to be engaged, whether it's You know, we do breakfast of champions for our field teams because, you know, without our roofers, we would be nothing. And so we once a year gather them all together. We give them breakfast, executives, leaders, they all serve breakfast for them. We give them a nice gift, whether it's boots, whether it's coolers, all kinds of things. And we just have a good time with them. But along the way, what else are you recognizing your team with? We've done massages here. You know, it's not just about the plaques that say, thanks for serving, you know, best roofing for 5 years, or here's your merit increase. There's so much more to rewards and recognition. And then implementing that peer accountability. That is so important for you to continuously implement that peer accountability, hold each other accountable, give each other that feedback. Align with your organizational vision. As I mentioned earlier, in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be gathering all of our directors in the room and saying, what is our vision? Do we need a reset? What does our vision look like now? We've changed so much over the last couple of years. What does that look like? But communicate those goals clearly to all team members. It's important to let every single person know how the company is doing, good, bad, or indifferent. And then establishing those core values. Define what those core values that will guide and learn those behaviors and interactions. You want your new employees to come in. You want new members to come in, board members to come in, know what those core values are. What's going to be expected of me? Not just a job description or the duties of a board member, but what's actually going to be expected of me. Integrity, ethic, all of that stuff, accountability. This is your code of ethics. It's how do we make decisions, not how do I make decisions. You probably can't see this very well, but these are our fundamentals that our founder, Greg Wallet, created. And so he was never a proponent of a vision, mission, statement. But this is what you need to do as an organization and as a team is define clear team goals and values. It's clear, concise communication, right? Hold each other accountable. All those things are important for an organization to be successful, and it's ever evolving. We've had those for a very long time. Doesn't mean that they're going away. We're going to look at them and say, do we need to change? Do we need to enhance? Do we need to focus on 5? How am I doing, Daniel? Any questions?
No questions. We do have a suggestion or a recommendation from Kelvin, who said that he wanted to offer the fact that with the requirement of websites and the transparency that comes with that, hopefully the community, it would help the community in transparency and alleviating some of these situations. And I think that's true for an informational standpoint, but I don't know that it's going to help with people and their attitudes. You know, I think that comes from a lot of what you were talking about, but Kelvin's insight about the website certainly helpful.
That's amazing. And we appreciate you sharing that insight, Kelvin. That's what this is all about. It's, again, we're not necessarily peers, everyone on this call, but I appreciate you continuously giving everyone on this call that feedback. So important. So this is just, I wanted to share that picture with you all. This is our breakfast of champions that we talked about. You know, we gather all of our roofers for the service and the construction side in one room. We play loud music. We have Christmas trees. You know, we give them lots and lots of food, which they enjoy. And we give them an opportunity to have conversations with us in the room where they normally wouldn't be. Building trust and mutual respect. I'm getting to that slide that I wanted to talk to you about. But of course, this isn't easy, right? Change always meets resistance. People are used to the old ways of working. I mean, I'm sure everyone on this call has said, well, the way we used to do it, or how things used to be, or what I'm accustomed to. So what's the solution to that? Clear communication involving employees in the change. You can't do it from the top only. It has to involve your employees. And reinforcing values until they become second nature, consistently talking about those values over and over again. If accountability, respect, better together, if those are your values, use them in your everyday sentences until it becomes second nature. In 2021, they did a study that 70% of change initiatives fail due to resistance. If you don't practice it every day, it's going to fail. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about this one, because building trust and mutual respect. So Sam is our new CEO. He's been with us since January. And we were in a we were in a meeting one day and they said, we want to do something different. We want to have the employees see us vulnerable. And I was like, ooh, I don't really know what to tell you. Like vulnerable, like we do coffee chats, they ask you very tough questions, you answer them even if they're uncomfortable. So I was like, all right, let me think about it and I'll come back. So I said, we're gonna do a barbecue, we're gonna do a paella. We're gonna have somebody come in and cook a paella for us, and all of us are gonna get in a dunk tank, and our employees are gonna have a chance to dunk us. That's the day that I almost got fired, but I'm still here. But it's I put that up there because it's one, the vulnerability, but building that trust and that mutual respect. I can't tell you how many times an employee has come up to me and said, the best event you've done here, and we've done some events and we've done huge company picnics, is when you guys had the dunk tank. And it was so fun to see you guys getting dunked. It was so fun to cheat and knock the thing over even when we didn't hit it, because it was good to see you guys in that vulnerable state where you didn't mind that we were cackling you and hackling you. I'm not telling you guys to go get a dunk tank because I can't tell you that these guys are not telling me never to do that again. But I wanted to share that because that vulnerability, mutual respect is definitely important. So think about, as you start to, get off of this webinar, is what's the biggest barrier you've seen when trying to introduce change in your workplace, and how have you been able to overcome that? Any questions, Daniel, before I keep going? We're about to bring this home.
Yeah, a little bit out of context, but it's a good question. Chris just had a really good question. What's your view of having a board member be an administrator of a private Facebook group page? Does this have censorship of or conflict of interest involved?
Not knowing all the rules, right, of being a board member, because I am not a board member, I would say that there probably is some conflict. I can tell you from a compliance HR perspective, social media is protected concerted activity. So there's nothing really that can stop us from posting those things. I think it's more about how you approach it, of the why behind it. Why is it happening? What are we posting? Why are we posting it? Versus having one channel of communication.
Yeah, and I think it's
Peggy,
also
do you have
important.
insight?
I was
I'm
just going to
sorry.
say, I think it's important to understand if it's a private Facebook group or if this is the Facebook page for the community, which, while it is a private group, is really the community's group and maybe should be managed by your property manager, not the board. Just my 2 cents.
Nope, I appreciate that. Anything else before we move on?
Well, can
go
I
ahead.
comment on that, please? That is not a recommendation, or it wasn't from the company I formerly worked for, to have the manager manage any social media, because it becomes very political and it can cause a very good management company to get booted for a misunderstanding on a Facebook, Twitter, any social media. Someone usually on the board manages that. Like, it doesn't have to be the president does everything, but like a vice president, or just a director, someone who is computer savvy, to check the messages every day, check the Facebook every day, and really have it be a community responsibility to run it and manage it, because your time for your manager is very valuable to run the building obligations, the property obligations, and things. It's just like, I don't recommend, and most management companies don't recommend, that you make your property manager the project manager for any projects like construction projects. They're not trained for that. Keep your manager in the lane that you want them to be when you hired them, and that is to manage the property, manage the community, and don't put extra things on them, especially if they're doing a great job. You don't want them to get into a political back and forth thing. So managers usually try to be very neutral, and answering Facebook things and so on. That should be done really by the board or someone in a committee. Again, going back to have a committee run the Facebook, take it off of the board, have the committee report to the board. That's just my recommendation.
Great insight, Peggy. Thank you. So we've talked a little bit about recognizing and rewarding team efforts, and I showed you some pictures of some of the stuff that we've done as an organization. But recognition isn't just necessarily award ceremonies or your merit increases. You also need to know how your employees like to be recognized. Is it public acknowledgement? We have this thing called BRTV where we put up everybody's anniversaries and birthdays, and that's how people know it's my birthday, it's your birthday, Peggy. So we're not necessarily, out there publicizing it, but people are reading it. We post our jobs and who's doing a great job, all of the marketing events that, Diana and the rest of the team are participating in. And we explain to them what that's all about. That's all about recognition. So it's not necessarily just your bonuses or your extra time off. There's just so many creative ways that you could recognize the team. So that's our bread and butter right there, the field staff. So you'll know it's working when teams confront issues constructively, they celebrate wins together, they rally through losses, they root each other and they say, yep, we didn't do well, but we're going to keep going. And the collaboration is the engine of that innovation. So implementing peer accountability, you're defining accountability practices. You establish those clear processes for clear accountability. PwC, again, probably the last statistics I'll give you for the day. Companies with high collaboration report 6% higher innovation rates. So what's one behavior as we start to end this webinar that you and your team show collaboration and that it's strong collaboration? Just think about that. Encourage team members to hold each other accountable for their contributions and performance. And then promote that constructive feedback that I keep honing in on. I can't hone in on it so much more. Foster a culture of constructive feedback where team members can provide and receive feedback openly and thank them for the feedback. You might feel a certain type of way, but sometimes you have to walk away from the feedback and say, I maybe didn't appreciate the way it was said to me, but maybe those are some things that I need to work on. And use the feedback as food for continuous improvement. So how do you implement the peer accountability? You're going to face challenges. You're going to have that resistance to change. Communicate the benefits of team culture and involve employees from beginning to end in the implementation process. Maintaining consistency. Go back to a couple of slides. If you create those core values, use them as part of your language every day, and they will become effective. And then balance the individual and team goals. You don't want to take away from an individual's contribution, but find a balance. Ensure that the individual goals are aligned with the team's objectives and recognize both individually and team contributions. How do you measure success? How do you know you're doing well? How do you know you've actually created a peer accountable organization? You'll know it's working when you have constructive confrontation. People aren't getting upset in a room. Celebrating each other's wins. I may not have gotten that sale, but Diana did. And so I'm going to celebrate her win. Self-development for the team. I'm sharing all of the self-development that I have with the rest of my team. You're winning together, you're losing together. Sales aren't good, we're losing together, guys. But sales are up there, we're winning together. And ignorance over important now over ignorant for life. And what you don't want to be is ignorant to the situations and the issues that you have at hand as you're trying to make those changes. So in conclusion, and I'm sure you guys are probably all excited that I'm about to finish talking to all of you. Implementing team culture is defining clear goals, fostering open communication, building trust, empowering each other, encouraging that collaboration, recognizing achievements, and promoting peer accountability. A shared vision for the future. By defining a clear vision of the future, teams will have the ability to buy in, bond together, and win. So for my last slide, I'll leave you with this quote. Teamwork is the ability to work together towards a common vision, the ability to direct individual accomplishments towards organizational objectives. It is a fuel that allows common people to attain uncommon results. Thank you so much, everybody. I really appreciate your time and your participation and your amazing questions.
Awesome.
Thank you, Barbara. There's a few comments in the Q&A, not so much questions, but if you want, we could take a look.
Sure.
Janet, I think, was going back to something a bit earlier where she said she had received I think it's a reply from one of the governors and VPs, and they replied on the accepting code of ethics and just said, another ignorant question from Janet. And she was wanting to know how they were interpreting acting with respect. So when she tried to ask, it seems like when she tried to ask a question, if I'm understanding this correctly, she was just sort of pushed aside with another ignorant question as opposed to being treated, respect.
Yeah. I mean, so that's definitely a fine line. I'm repetitive. I practice it at home. It drives my husband and my kids crazy, but I think that open feedback is definitely the way to go. It's difficult to address those types of situations, but I think you need to say, this is how that commentary made me feel. And whatever your role is with, the questions, it's important to you. And so why are you dismissing my question? Let's talk about it. And so sometimes it's important to tell people, please listen to understand versus listening to respond. It's not an easy conversation to have, but I think you definitely need to raise your hand and say, I'd like to address the commentary of my ignorant question.
And then Kelvin responded, I think this had to do with the Facebook quote. He was saying that property managers are directed by the board regarding communication, hence the website has restriction. And by logging in, you are accepting by the board or board appointed moderator. So I think what he's saying is just when it came to that Facebook page or the website for the community, that it's all being driven by the board and property management has to follow what the board is telling them. So may or may not provide the transparency we were talking about earlier.
Gotcha. Thank you for that, Kelvin. Appreciate that insight.
And that's it. Everything else I think is just good comments, but no real questions here. Everyone's saying how great of a job you did and how much they appreciated your presentation. So great work there, Barbara.
I appreciate you guys. The payment for the checks and all the positive feedback is in the mail.
Peggy, you want to wrap?
Yes, let me wrap it up. Thank you so much. You filled in, you did an awesome job, and we can't thank you enough. All my sponsors, thank you again. Daniel, you are awesome in your own right, and I can't thank you enough. The other thing I want to close with is to just let you know next week I have two amazing webinars I'm very excited about. On Tuesday, I have a public adjuster from Altieri, Steve Mason. Him and his partner from Altieri are going to talk to the board members and CAMs about what you need to know when you file a claim with your insurance firm versus a public adjuster. So I've seen it. It's amazing. It's a lot of good information. Please try to join us for that one. And then next Friday, there is a legal update being put on by the attorney Stephen Rappaport of Sachs, and Kaplan. Now, it is a new law. The board members are required now to attend one credit of legal update. So next Friday, look for that. It's going to be in the morning from 10 until 11:30 a.m. So try not to miss that. It will qualify you for your one credit that you need. I have some more coming past that, but those are the two that I'm really excited about next week. And I can't thank the audience enough. I commend all the board members that were on today, your volunteers, and you're trying hard to run your communities, and managers. Thank you as well. Till then, have a great weekend, and we'll see you in the next time.
Thanks, Peggy. Have a great one, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thank you.